Good afternoon, folks. I'm Rabbi Gila Langner, and it's an honor to be leading this memorial service, this funeral. We're going to start with what's known as Kriya, the tearing of a ribbon. It's an ancient custom to tear one's clothes upon hearing that a loved one has died. It's a sign that the world is no longer whole, especially for this family, that one's heart has been torn, just like this ribbon will be torn. But it's also a signal that we accept the good and the bad that life has to offer. And even in the midst of life, we affirm, in the midst of death and loss, we affirm that life is worthwhile and love is everlasting. So I'm going to invite Rachel, David, and Brother Neil and Diane, if you wish to come up, and we will put the ribbon on you. After you place the ribbon on your lapel or your clothing, we will ask you to tear from the bottom up and say the blessing at the same time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Blessed is the source of life, even in the face of death. You to return. Can I invite Carolyn to come up and sing one of the most beautiful Hebrew folk songs, Eli Eli.
Dear Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. We love you, Joan.
So beautiful. Thank you. Adam im ben shana yiyeh, were a person to live a single year, or even 1,000. Kilo haya yiyeh, it would not seem enough. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Strengthen us to walk through the sadness and find once more the goodness of life. From Psalm 30. Ba'erev yalin bechi v'laboker rina. At night one lies down weeping, but joy comes in the morning. Hear, O Lord, and have mercy on me. Be my help. Turn my lamentation into dancing. Undo my sackcloth and gird me with joy, that my whole being might sing hymns to you endlessly. O Lord, my God, I will praise you forever. We come together to mourn and mark the passing of Joan Grace Gartner from this world. Aleha HaShalom, peace be upon her, and to offer support and comfort today and in the weeks ahead to those who were closest to her, Rachel and David, her beloved grandson Reuben, who would be here if not for COVID, her brother Neil and sister-in-law Diane, her grandchildren Jennifer and Keith. It is a small family, but one that radiates outward into a large circle of friends and beloveds who appreciated and loved Joan Gartner and her family. Let me offer in tribute an overview of her life. Joan was born in 1936 in Muncie, Indiana, to Sylvia and Michael Rosen. Michael was an Army doctor, Sylvia a librarian. They moved out of Muncie a few months after Joan was born. Much of her childhood was spent in Fargo, North Dakota. Joan, by the way, loved Fargo. According to Rachel, and Rachel, please correct anything I get wrong here.
Correct me.
Okay. So apparently Joan would talk about how the snow was so high you couldn't open the door to get out of the house, and she loved that. 3 years after Joan, Neil came along, and another 8 years after that, when Joan was 11, the family moved to Brooklyn. These were hard years. Sylvia was ill with bipolar disorder and in and out of hospitals. Being closer to their relatives was so important. Joan spent a lot of time staying with several generations of family in their enormous house on Hart Street in Bedford-Stuyvesant. It was there that the cousins solidified their lifelong friendships. Meanwhile, Joan turned out smart and interested in education. She was rumored to have the highest IQ in the family. And at Queens College, she graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in English. After college, she lived on her own in the Village off Washington Square Park. She was cool all the way back. She had a number of different jobs as a secretary for a lawyer, as a copy editor for a New York publisher, even at a soap factory where she was once asked to be a smell tester for Ivory soap. Her dad said that Joan could type an outrageous number of words per minute. You know, it's hard for us to remember these days, but being a secretary was a valued position for women. I know it was part of my history. And it was one that provided security and meaningful involvement in businesses and institutions in the world of the public, right? Joan's longest position as a secretary was working for the Great Neck Public Schools, and she continued to work even after having her kids. But let me back up on that. Joan was introduced to Joseph Gartner in 1967 because both of them were short. True story. One day, Joe's mother was talking with a friend of Joan's mother, and one of them mentioned that she knew a short man who needed to meet some short girls. Joan was on the list of 3 short girls that was given to Joe. I think after he met her, there were no more on the list. It worked. 5 months later, they were married. Joe was an electrical engineer in a big company with defense contracts. They started off in a little apartment in Great Neck. Rachel was born in 1970 and Naomi in 1972. The kids grew up in a house on Claudy Lane in New Hyde Park, close to where Joe worked. I love this, Lake Success. But neither Joe nor Joe made a lot of money, but they built success in other ways. They built a whole world in their house on this dead-end street. They lived modestly, but they never felt like they lacked anything. They were happy with simple things, Joe with gadgets, Joan with books. Not for them was the ostentatiousness of other Great Neck residents. Neither of them was into superficial qualities of looks and wealth and clothing and weight, all that. Joan was creative and enthusiastic. She read fiction voraciously, with good taste in literature and poetry. She always had a book in her hand. She loved to sing and enjoyed classical music, opera, and choral music. At one point, she was singing in 3 different choirs. And she was super into Judaism. When Rachel was 5, Joan studied to become a bat mitzvah. This was before everyone was having an adult bat mitzvah. She was big into Reform Judaism and big into feminism as it developed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She loved trying new things and got quite passionate about her discoveries. I heard the Velveeta cheese story. When Joan discovered Velveeta cheese, which is about 20 years after it came on the market, she did a mac and cheese experiment for the family.
A lot of you were there.
Mac and cheese with Velveeta, mac and cheese without Velveeta. Without Velveeta won decisively, to Joan's disappointment.
She was so bummed.
When the girls were growing up, Joan would often gather them around the piano to sing. She also picked up guitar as an adult. She made Jewish holidays a complete joy, imparting her deep love of Judaism to Rachel. She was a non-judgmental, non-critical mother to her 2 beautiful, brilliant daughters. And dare I say what a rarity that is among Jewish mothers of that era. She loved color and vibrancy and clothing and paintings and everything that surrounded her. Her living room furniture was red, her kitchen table a bright yellow. One year she drew a line down the middle of the kitchen, then proceeded to paint one side yellow, including the refrigerator, and the other side brown. And perhaps that was a glimpse into her interior world, joy and despair side by side. She was not one to talk about her feelings much, but she inherited the mental illness of her mother, and she grieved that Naomi too inherited it. There were times when she would need to disappear into her room for a few days. There were times of lashing out, but she was never mean, and the apologies came quickly when she had righted herself. Through these times, Joe was by her side. He would do anything for Joan. Joan would say that her husband was a quality person, meaning that he was always kind, no matter what. Joe was the social half of the couple, taking a genuine interest in other folks, and always trying to set up single people with the match. Joan was less outgoing, and she thought of herself as shy until her final years. When Naomi died in 2012, Joe never fully recovered from the loss. Joe mourned as well, but she was better able to compartmentalize. After Joe's lengthy decline and his death 3 years ago, Joan made a life for herself at Brighton Gardens. She blossomed in unexpected ways, leading Shabbat services for the other residents, making loads of friends, leading a singing circle with show tunes. Each week, she and the program director would research a show, put together the lyrics in big print, and make up a book of tunes. Sing Along with Joan became a popular event. They had to move it into a different room because there were so many people coming. The last few years also healed Joan and Rachel's relationship in unexpected ways. They became, at last, good friends. When Joan discovered sushi and discovered that the Giant carried sushi on sale midweek, that became Sushi Wednesdays with Rachel. But they spoke every day, and the mother-daughter relationship became a close, close bond. I wish I had known Joan Gartner. She was down to earth and had a zest for life. She had no tolerance for bullshit. And she apparently loved women rabbis. she had the best as her daughter. And I wish Joan Gartner's life had been easier. She was the second in 3 generations of women who suffered from a terrible neurological disease. They each did the best they could, but it took a tremendous toll on their own lives and the lives of the people who loved them. The last 5 years could be excruciating to watch as Joan's health suffered, but simultaneously at Brighton Gardens, she was making a new life for herself, right at the end, with the grace that comes from being surrounded by people who love you, the residents, the nurses, the staff, and of course Rachel, David, and Reuben. Joan managed to live a long and full life. Yehi zichra baruch. May her memory be a blessing. Let me invite David to share some reflections.
Thank you so much for that, Rabbi Langner. And I don't know if you talked about the grace of her being surrounded by loved ones. Did you know her middle name was Grace? And maybe that was one of her graces, was that she was surrounded by loved ones. I want to point to that. I want to say thank you so much to all the people who are here in all the different ways that a person can be here. There are people who traveled here. There are people who are coming to us through the ether. And I think maybe particularly after the way that you evoked them, I think Joe is here. I think Naomi is here. I think the whole family is here. I just wanted to say a couple things about Joan, who was my mother-in-law. And what I liked most to say about my mother-in-law was that you don't make any money betting against Joan Gartner. Folks know she went through a lot of things over the years, but she kept bouncing back from those things. She was strong. She had a fierce intelligence. She was feisty. I think that's maybe why I just noticed the other day she kept her red hair her whole life. She had very strong opinions. Her opinions were so strong that sometimes I wondered if she wasn't a secret Philadelphian. She traveled a lot in her youth. It was possible. She disapproved of some things. She disapproved strongly of Marvel movies and the fact that we watched them. She disapproved strongly of Republican politics and excessively large meals. That was, I think, the thing that bothered her the most in life for reasons I never understood. On the other hand, she loved a good bagel and lox, and she had very strong opinions about what constituted a good bagel and lox. For example, Brighton Garden, according to her, but not to anyone else, had a very good bagel and lox, and she raved about that. She loved literature. She loved, which is something that I love, and so we would talk about that a lot. She was convinced that I had read Moby Dick wrong, and that if I had read it correctly, I would have liked it. We talked about books many times. She loved art. She loved poetry. She loved you. I think it's important to say. I think that was at the center of what she loved, was this family. And that there was a real fiery love that she held everybody in who was important to her, and that she would have done anything for. I guess I'll just say that the concept of may her memory be for a blessing, I think that can be interpreted to mean a lot of different things. But the way I think about it the most is that the hope is that just remembering who she was and what she was like will become a blessing, because we will live into that life in the way that she lived it. That it will continue because we learned from her and because we can be like her. And so I think I'm wearing this tie in her honor, this fiery tie. And I guess I would just invite us to honor her going forward by just bringing as much fire into your life as you possibly can.
Thank you, David. Beautiful. I'd like to call Joan's niece, Jennifer, and then ask Amanda to follow her.
I can't follow those people.
You are.
I know. Whew. Okay, so a lot of what I kind of prepared to say was already said because they hit the nail on the head. My Aunt Joan was absolutely amazing. She had a quiet fierceness that just cannot be duplicated. She was a devoted mother, wife, sister, aunt, grandmother, mother-in-law, cousin, friend, person, overall. Just a few cute, lovely stories. With talking to my dad, she would take him to Coney Island, you know, what was it, the parachute jump? And the story he gave my daughters was that she was the one who would take him to his bar mitzvah, not his parents, his sister. Passover was special because of Aunt Joan.
Yeah.
She made Passover. Learning the guitar, she brought the guitar, and now my brother brings his guitar to Passover. Her sense of humor, if you didn't catch it, was wicked. You may miss it because she was quiet about it, but it was worth it. She was so funny.
You never missed it.
She was committed to her causes. And I'm just going to bring up a certain recycling campaign that she won, by the way, at age, I don't know, 80-something?
86, 85.
Yeah. Don't mess with Joan. That's all I'm going to say. She was one of the most creative people at every stage of her life. I don't know if you remember the weed garden.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Cloudy Lane, in and of itself, 161 Cloudy Lane, is just a testament to her creativity, both in the aesthetic of it, the feeling you got when you walked into the house, and how she made you feel when you walked into the house, right? The Shabbat services, the songbooks I have in my house still that I never got to return to her, so now they're mine. Sorry. And just the fact that she was a fighter from day one, in the fight we witnessed, right? And then the quirk that was Aunt Joan, right? And just one of my favorite last memories of her is seeing her, and I'm telling her, you know, Piper and Eiley and Michael and I, we love you. Oh, and Hoshi loves you too. She's like, Hoshi.
She loved Hoshi.
She loved Hoshi, my dog. And Hoshi loved her too. My 100-pound dog would maul her, and she loved it. And love you, Aunt Joan. Love you, Rachel. Love you, everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amanda. I'm one of Rachel's old friends, along with Kat and Lauren and Liz. We are so grateful to Joan, both because she gave life to our friend and because we had Joan herself in our lives for as long as we did. One of my earliest memories of Joan is at Rachel's bat mitzvah. She was full of joy and quiet confidence, playing guitar, singing, and telling a Princess Rachel story. I was bowled over by the palpable love, the Yiddishkeit, and the warmth. It's no wonder that both of her girls had talent for and love of music, or that Rachel became a rabbi. But mostly when I think of Joan, I imagine her on Cloudy Lane in New Hyde Park, zipping around her home, keeping it organized and always incredibly welcoming. She was a woman of valor in our world, in Eshet Chaya. I hesitated to use that extreme level of praise, but we consistently observed her devotion to family, friends, her communities, her righteous behavior, so I am embracing Joan's honesty and I'm calling it like I see it. I hesitated because she was also humble and egalitarian. Here's a classic example. We're in middle school, and we must have been envying some girls or making unflattering comparisons among our classmates. And the next thing we know, Joan exclaims, "They have 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth." It stunned us into middle school silence, which, as you probably know, is not so easy to do. I don't know if that particular aspect of her insight came from her time in the Midwest or her life experience, but I love that line and exactly how she said it, and it has grounded me countless times. And the best part is that she enjoyed a beautiful scarf or to look nice, but as a tasteful celebration, not the unhealthy middle school ruminations we were up to. Another favorite memory I have is from around 1996. I had 2 tickets to see Ray Charles in concert. I was supposed to go with my boyfriend, who I had just broken up with. And I'm fretting over what to do with the tickets at Joan's house. And, I'm going back and forth, obsessing with Rachel over it. And I finally just went ahead and said, "Joan, what do you think? What's your advice?" And she said, "Ray Charles is incredible. I wouldn't miss him." Inherent in her response was the understanding that you can't control love or a lot of other stuff, but life is short. And if you can witness Ray Charles, you better go and do it. She had great appreciation for music, literature, art, theater, and many intellectual pursuits. But I think we can all agree that out of all there is to love in this world, she loved Reuben the most. Rube, your nature, the fine person you are, your talents, your face, your existence was her favorite.
No.
I hope that you pack that with you when you head to Brandeis next month. Your grandma was an intellectually gifted woman with discerning taste, and she believed in you 1,000% on every level. No offense, Rach, she thought you were all right too. And of course, David and Joseph, as she called him, and Naomi, and all of her family and friends. Rachel, my heart is full that you had this chapter as best friends. The sing-alongs, the Sushi Wednesdays, all of it. I'm forever grateful to Joan for the love and wisdom that she seemingly effortlessly exuded at times in a very understated way and at times with some oomph. To this day, Ray Charles is the best concert I've ever seen. And that ex-boyfriend became my beloved husband. I promise you, Joan, that your precious Rachie and David and Reuben will never be alone. All of us in this room and on Zoom are crazy about them and will be there for them so much that it's going to be annoying. You and Joe and Naomi filled them with so much love that they create more of it wherever they go. May all of us here carry on the goodness that you lived by, and may your memory be for a blessing.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Jennifer. Rachel, I don't know if you want to say a few words. Okay, come on up.
Oops. I think, I have a lot of papers. I just first want to, read this poem to the women that ushered my mom out of this world in this last month, and particularly this last week, 24/7. Strangers, women from across the world, whose lives, we just, whew. This is for them. We are loved by an unending love. Rabbi Rami Shapiro, some of us know this. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We're touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we're too proud for soothing. We're counseled by voices that guide us, even when we're too embittered to hear. We're loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers. Yours are the arms, the fingers, the voices, the hands, the eyes, and the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. That's for Christine and Florence and Tina and Faustina and Zaytun and Lydia and Joanne. Solange. And all the folks at Brighton, been to, and I was a nurse at Brighton, and all of them. Mommy, I admired the way you lived. I like the way you lived. That's the most important thing. I admire the way you lived, and I like the way you lived. You did great. And Naomi thought so too. Okay? She did. I know that for real. I'm not just saying it. She loved you very much. I knew that you loved her very much. That was never in question. I enjoyed being with you and spending time with you, though enjoyed is nowhere near the right word for how it felt, because what words can describe how a daughter feels when she's with her mother, who she admires, likes, cherishes, and loves. I felt real when I was with you. I felt, at times, most profoundly myself. Were you hard to read and quiet when I so wished you'd share what weighed on your heart and mine? Yeah. Were you too overwhelmed to be with me in the way I and you both wanted sometimes? Yeah. But you were never critical, always kind. Rachel, we are sturdy. Those skinny people, the wind's gonna come and blow them away. Our legs are sturdy. Nothing's gonna knock us down. girls, you are so lucky. Looking in the mirror. You know this one. You have such a beautiful mother. You were always proud of me, even when you thought my sermons were too long. Always I have the best daughters. You had what I called in my head these zingers, Mom. This uncanny ability to just cut through the noise, and all my whatever I was pontificating or mystified or mystical or confused about, and you would just say something true and wise. It wasn't not snarky and not flashy, but deep and abiding and true. So many things that I call to mind so often. The 2 eyes, 2 noses, and a mouth. She also thought Queen Anne's lace was as beautiful as any prize-winning orchid. I learned that from her. I'm almost done. I hadn't realized till recently that I think I got my sentimentality and absolute fall-on-the-floor love for people from Dad. I didn't realize how funny that sounded. It's true. I just realized you were here. But from you, I got my discomfort when things felt wrong or unjust. Your fire to fix things was unending, from letters to my teacher in 2nd grade about how she was concerned that health ed was teaching things all wrong, to, you name, it was year after year, I'm gonna write a letter, her mother was the same way, Aliyah Shalom, to her campaign in Brighton, and I'll end with that, I think. She was concerned about the plastic cups. There were too many plastic cups being used at Brighton Gardens. So she did this whole thing where she investigated how many Brighton Gardens there were in the entire world, figured out how many residents lived there, how many plastic cups they would each, she did all this math, they would each use, she figured out how much tons of plastic one day at Brighton Gardens in the world would be wasting. And she wrote a petition. And she sent it to the head of Brighton Gardens. She had everybody sign. It was out in the front hallway, Joan's petition. And they got rid of their plastic cups. At one Brighton. I promised her I'd finish the job. Okay. I know, we're getting long. Okay. Other things about Brighton, she would see the dresses of the aides and the nurses and tell me about them all the time. Oh, they're so beautiful. Women are so beautiful. Been to her nurse the other day said to me, who's going to ask me for pictures of my daughter? Every morning I go home and take pictures of my daughter because I know I have to bring them to Joan. We connected more deeply in these last 10 years, which was so healing and so beautiful, and I'm so grateful for that blessing. And her greatest joy in later years was, of course, little Reuben. She always wanted to know everything I knew about you, kiddo. Sometimes she had advice, but most of the time she would just kvel. I told Reuben I was sorry this was happening the summer before college, because we wanted the focus to be on him. And he said, yeah, I thought of that, but there are positives too. She saw me in my cap and gown. She heard about all my applying to colleges. She knows that I'm going to Brandeis. And boy, my Jewish mother loved the idea that he was going to Brandeis. She had 2 sticky notes on her fridge. One said, such and such, Dr. Feldman, ENT, etc. And the other one said in scribbly hands, Brandeis. And Reuben, one of the last times he saw her, walked out. And we walked out and he said, did you see it said Brandeis on the refrigerator? And he saw that, and I saw him seeing that. And I told her the next day, Dayenu. Oh my gosh, I have one more thing to say. I'm so sorry. My mom loved literature, and her son-in-law was a boon, a huge boon in her life. They shared books and authors and poetry. Oh my, he read her Rilke in her last days. He also visited and cared for and supported her day after day after day, and me. And if David was not here to support me emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I would never have given her one iota of what I was able to give her. And nor would I have been able to receive from her what I was able to receive from her in these last years. Thank you. My last words to my mom. Actually, I'm going to read you this from Araya. Evidently, Araya and my mom started writing letters in January. Dear Araya, Happy Tu B'Shvat. Thank you for your wonderful letter. I'm writing this big so I can catch most of my typos. I don't have all that much to say, but I'm leading 2 Jewish Shabbats per month, one for the assisted living floor and one for the memory deficient floor, she says. Although there are 30 Jews on the one and 10 on the other, they don't all come for Shabbat, but I keep chugging along with 15 assisted living Jews and 4 memory deficient Jews coming each time. 2 other professional leaders give 1 Shabbat a month, each with her own style, totaling 3 Shabbats a month. Needless to say, mine is the best. I usually go out for a walk, weather permitting. Of course, the weather has not been permitting lately, but there is a lot to do here. And the staff is very nice, and the residents are mostly communicative. There is a great Saturday morning farmers market next door at the Village Community Center. Each week I bring Rachel and David and Reuben the vegetarian food they can eat and like. And I have fun shopping. I carry the food home on my walker. At the same location, there is a fountain and evening outdoor and indoor concerts. It is a very pleasant neighborhood with a lot of trees and flowers. Rachel visits me once a week and brings me to supper in their home once a week. I am very lucky in my family in general. I am very lucky in my family, and that includes you and your family. I always put the best at the last. I should have put this paragraph at the beginning of the letter. Aren't you glad I didn't have much to say? Love to you both, Joan. The last words my mom said to me about 2 weeks ago, when she could still talk, were good night, Rachie. And so, same were my last to her. Good night, Mommy. I am so grateful. I love you. Good night, Mommy.
Oh, I wish you could go on all afternoon.
Sorry, I probably could have.
Right.
Told me it was too long.
But I just wonder if we have time for a couple of other stories or memories or things people would like to share. This is not the only opportunity. There will be Shiva afterwards, but if somebody is moved to speak, please just go ahead, Diane.
I remember a great deal of really wonderful times. But when Neil and I first became engaged, Joan welcomed me into the family by Sunday evening dinners. They were all taken out of one small cookbook, which I got later. And what made it even more special was the fact that I found out later she hated to cook. And I am wearing these earrings today because they were purchased in Spain on our second trip. Joan was the one who paid for our first trip on our honeymoon. So I think of her with these earrings.
Thank you. Come on up if you would.
Hey everybody, I'm Keith. I am Joan's nephew. The core of my family growing up was my family and Rachel's family, and that was it. It was us and my grandma and Papa Bill, of course. Without Joan, I don't think I would have any involvement in Judaism at all. She was so interested in it, and she was so passionate about it. But what she brought to me really was, when she'd come for Passovers and any other holiday, she'd come with her guitar. She's not the only reason why I play guitar and sing now, but she's definitely one of them. And she is the reason why I love Passover, and I can connect with it, and I connect with other values in Judaism. And it's the reason why my daughter, as soon as she could, had her own Passover. And there was singing, and there was fun, and there was discussing, like we had in ours. And they were awesome. They were all awesome. And they're really sort of one corner of the foundation of who I am today. And I really have my Aunt Joan to thank for that. Yeah. And goddamn, I miss Naomi.
Oh, she loved you. I want the young cousins.
Anyone else? There'll be lots of other opportunities. So we're going to do some of the ritual parts of the service. Psalm 23, which I'll do first, chant in Hebrew, and then we'll recite it together in English. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai rohi lo echsar, binot asher yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech beged amavet lo hirara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamoni. Taruch lefanai shulchan, taruch lefanai shulchan, taruch lefanai shulchan, neged zohevai, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beved Adonai, Veshavti bevet Adonai leorech yamim. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We rise in body or spirit to recite the El Maleh prayer, the traditional Jewish prayer for the soul, prayer that the soul of the deceased might find peace in its journey into worlds beyond this one, and yet continue to be connected in this world, B'tzror HaChayim, as part of the bonds of life that death does not sever. El Maleh Rachamim, God filled with mercy, Shochen Bamromim, who dwells in heaven's heights. Hamtze menucha nechona, tachat kanfei Ashchina, bring to perfect rest under the shelter of your presence. B'malot kedoshim u'tehorim, amid the ranks of the holy and the pure. Kizohar haraki hamasirim, who still shine like the radiance of the sky. Et nishmat Sarah Golda bat Shifra v'Michael, the soul of Joan Grace Gartner, shel chale holamaha, which is journeying to other worlds. Began Eden te menuchata, Anna balarachamim, please God, source of mercy. Hastireha beseter knafecha leholamim, shelter her in the shadow of your love forever. Utzror bitzror achayim et nishmata, and bind among the living her precious soul. Adonai hu nachalataha, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, and may she find peace in her resting place. V'nomaha amen. Let us say amen. Please stay standing if you're able for the mourner's Kaddish. I have one copy here, and there are others who would like. We do have additional. Copies. Kaddish. Yit gadol v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'naseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al Yisrael v'al Yoshvei Tevel v'yimru. Amen. Please be seated. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for your brother or someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. You can love me most by sharing your celebrations and multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not on your mind. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Joan loved that reading. Donations in Joan's memory may be made to the Sierra Club, Great Neck Choral Society, NAMI, or TRUA, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights. Right after the service, a meal of consolation will be held in the private back room at Busboys and Poets across the street, sponsored by the Marshall T. Meyer Rabbinic Fellows of Congregation B'nai Jeshurun. There will be a Shiva tomorrow at Brighton Gardens, a chance for Joan's friends and loved ones to be present there. Shiva will also take place on Saturday and Sunday evenings on Zoom, and I'm sure there'll be an email going out with all that information. We say shalom and not goodbye, for shalom is goodbye, and hello, and wholeness, and peace, all threaded together in one breath, and in one breath we too say goodbye, to a hand to hold, a kiss and a tight embrace, and in the same breath of shalom we say hello to an ocean of memories, and a rush of emotion, gratitude and sorrow, tears and laughter and trembling and fatigue, all in one breath. Shalom, 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 shalom. This concludes the service. Take your time walking out, saying goodbye. Shalom, 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 shalom.